my name is Amanda Escalera, and I'm a first-year Master's of Public Health student specializing in nutritional sciences. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about basic nutrition principles, how that translates to food on your plate, and I'm going to go a little bit into detail on carbohydrate consumption. Okay, so to start off, I just want to discuss some common sources of nutrition misinformation. So for example, let's set the record straight on what is the difference between health coaches, personal trainers, and nutritionists in terms of giving nutrition advice. So people with the RDN and RD credential, RD stands for registered dietitian. RDN is used interchangeably with RD. It just means registered dietitian nutritionist. It's up to the professional to choose what abbreviation they want, but it is the same thing. They go through extensive training in which they take courses on biochemistry, physiology, principles of nutrition, macronutrients, which are the carbs, the fats, the proteins, micronutrients, which are the minerals and vitamins. They also go into classes like medical nutrition therapy, which equips them with skills to prescribe diets to individuals. So these courses allow dietitians to understand all of the factors that go into a person's metabolism and how nutrition can help them in that person's situation. So health coaches, personal trainers, and nutritionists may take basic level courses on nutrition in which they may be able to talk about how much food from each food group you should be eating, what a balanced plate looks like, to focus on lean protein sources like chicken breast, salmon, to incorporate eggs into your diet because they have vitamins and minerals. They can talk about your water intake, but they are not equipped to prescribe a diet or a meal plan to anyone. So I see this a lot with personal trainers. So they'll try to prescribe a workout program to you, and then they'll claim that it won't work as well if you don't do the meal plan that goes with the workout program. But they're not really, they don't really have the credentials to prescribe meal plans or diets to anyone. They just don't have the knowledge or preparation in that area. So it's important to take advice from these type of sources, from health coaches, personal trainers, nutritionists, with a grain of salt, and know that they only know the basics. And if you really want to know what you should be eating, when you should be eating it, you should work with a registered dietitian that listens to you, listens to your body's needs, most likely looks at lab panels in which they can see your hormone levels, your carbohydrate, fat, and protein ratios in your body at that moment. And so they collaborate with you to know what your life is like, what your stress levels are, what are your responsibilities, so that they can develop a sustainable diet plan for you. Apart from all that extensive coursework that I mentioned at the beginning, dietitians have to complete a 1,200-hour internship, in which is similar to medical students, that they do rotations. And so they go to clinical sites like hospitals, physician offices, they go to schools, they go to community centers, in which they study and see nutrition practice in various different contexts. And so they just are equipped with skills that will help patients better their health conditions with nutrition and food. And so their education is based very, very strictly on food, nutrition, biochemistry, metabolism. And so they go into this field and spend at least 2 to 3 years studying, then do the internship, and then they're able to sit for the licensing exam. So it's very extensive. Another common source of nutrition misinformation are manufacturer claims. So for example, this, like what we have here, this premium slimming tea, that makes claims like it helps in weight loss, it burns cholesterol, or it has antioxidants that help your immune system. So it says that it helps in weight loss, but for, just general reference, anything that we intake, so if we intake food or if we intake any beverage, unless it's water, it's going to get broken down into energy in our bodies. And so it's kind of contradicting with the product says that it helps you lose weight when you actually have to drink something, or, it's very unclear as to how they're claiming that it helps with weight loss. And so weight loss happens when you intake a certain amount of calories and you spend more calories than you're intaking. And so that way you're in an energy deficit, and that's the only way in which you can lose weight. The other claim is that it burns cholesterol. Can't really burn or sweat off cholesterol. You only excrete it through bile via your liver. So that is a faulty claim. And then the other one is delivering high levels of antioxidants to help your immune system. So that this varies depending on the person. And so it also varies if you're actually like absorbing these antioxidants, if the tea in tea form, if they're available for your body to take into your cells. It's very complicated. And so when you see simplistic claims like these, I would just stay away from them. And, the government and the Academy of Nutrition has not approved any product that will supposedly help you lose weight. So I would stay away from these products. Some of them have been linked to actually adverse health outcomes. So I would really stay away from them. Your best bet is to have a healthy diet and incorporate physical activity if you're looking to lose weight. Quick fix diets and programs. So anything that lets you know that supposedly you can lose 10 pounds in 10 days if you buy that product. That is just clickbait. Weight loss and weight gain is very, very personal to the individual. It depends on so many different factors, not just the weight that you're at, not just your height, not just, your gender. It depends on your stress levels. It depends on your hormone levels. These are factors that could be interfering or facilitating that you gain or lose weight. So anything that tries to guarantee that something that, that your metabolism will perform in a certain way, in a certain amount of days or a certain amount of time, when your metabolism depends on your genetics, on, like what I mentioned, your stress levels, your hormone levels, and so many different things. It's just stay away from it. It's very simplistic. It's generalizing. And, some person may lose weight in 3 months. Another person may lose it in a month. It's very variable, and it depends on so many different things. And I will assure you that a diet or a program that tries to put a due date on how fast you can lose or gain weight is not a good program. And it's just not based on scientific evidence. Celebrities or influencers or social media. So one that I can think off the top of my head is Kourtney Kardashian. Kourtney has a health and wellness company called Poosh, and they put out several blogs about healthy eating. And so in one of them, Kourtney talks about doing the keto diet. For those that don't know, the keto diet is a diet that is heavily focused on fats as an energy source, fats and protein. And so you have very little carbs. The only carbs that you can have are dark green leafy vegetables like spinach, lettuce, and maybe berries that are very low on carbs and don't raise your blood sugar much. And so you can only even have very little amount of those. And so she claims that this diet helps with her mood, it helps with her energy, and it also helps her lose weight. I would stay away from taking advice from celebrities or influencers on social media, because there is this concept called the social determinants of health, which is an evidence-based concept that basically lets us know how a person's income level of education, the neighborhood that they live in, the environmental toxins that they're exposed to play a role in their health outcomes. And so a person like Kourtney Kardashian, who is very wealthy, has a wide array of resources available to her at any moment, has personal chefs, nannies, doesn't really have to worry about having a 9 to 5 to secure a paycheck, is not a person that deals with the same daily stressors as the average person. And so, what may work for her may not work for you, and it may not be sustainable for you. So I would just say, obviously you can experiment and see, what works for you, what doesn't, but just don't directly assume that because one person that's a celebrity or a high status person is doing it, that it will directly work for you, because we are different individuals and, our lives are very different. And honestly, like I said, level of income, level of education, stressors in our daily lives very much impact our health. And it's really important to know that most of the times, a lot of the health outcomes that we may see in our families or we may see in communities are a result of those daily stressors that they have to deal with, and poor medical care, and so many things. And so it's not as simple as saying, oh, I'm just going to go on a keto diet and this is going to happen. So just be wary of that. Okay, so how does a balanced plate look? So the Department of Agriculture and Health and Human Services in the United States develops the dietary guidelines for Americans. And so from those guidelines, they basically make MyPlate, which is an infographic, basically telling you what food groups you should eat. And so before this, they had the food pyramid, which you may be familiar with too. And so this is basically telling you that half of your plate should be fruits and vegetables, and then the other half should be divided between grains and protein. And you should also incorporate some dairy as well. And a way in which this translates into food on your plate is here we can see we have a plate with broccoli, red peppers, spinach. We have blackberries, blueberries, apples. We also have the grains, and we have salmon as our protein source. And so this is just one example in which you can take the recommendation of, having half of your plate be fruits and vegetables, and then the other half divided between grains and proteins, and you can make a plate out of it. Just a note for dairy, you're supposed to, if you don't consume animal-based products, and you don't consume milk because you're lactose intolerant, the plant-based beverage alternative that you should consume is soy milk, just because it contains the most comparable set of nutrients and amino acid profile as cow's milk. And so that's just a little note for you to know that if you don't consume cow's milk, the milk that you should consume is soy milk. Otherwise, almond milk, rice milk, oat milk don't have the same nutrients as soy milk and do not compare as well to cow's milk. And so MyPlate is so great because it even has an app. So when you download the app, you can see that the app has food groups. And so you can click on it, each food group, and it literally tells you, depending on your life stage and your gender, how much of each food group you should consume. And so, for example, if you're a woman between 19 to 30 years old, you should consume 2 cups of fruit. And then it gives you examples of how you can meet these 2 cups of fruit. So you can choose to eat one large banana, and then you can eat 1 cup of grapes, and so forth. I just want to say that when eating any food group, variety is best. So like what we saw at this previous slide, we have for our vegetables, we don't only have one type of vegetables, we have broccoli, red pepper, and spinach, just because all of them contribute different minerals. So for example, spinach has vitamin K, broccoli has iron, red pepper has vitamin C. And so when you incorporate variety into your plate, you're making sure that you're getting a lot of nutrients that you should be getting in, and you're not overdoing any food group. And so the same thing here with fruits. It's ideal that you maybe have a citrus and then you have a banana, and then instead of making them all be like your 2 cups of fruit from apple and stuff like that. And the same thing with each fruit group. MyPlate is also great because it has an online calorie calculator. And what a calorie calculator does is that it takes into account your age, your height, and your weight, as well as your gender, and if you're pregnant or not, and your physical activity, and it determines how many calories you should be consuming per day. There is a caveat to this though. Like I've been mentioning throughout the presentation, your body responds to so many different factors like daily stress levels, hormone levels, certain diseases that you may have, certain conditions, genetics. And so all of those will play a role in your metabolism. And so you may find that amount of calories that they're suggesting does not fit for you. So I would take it as a good starting point to know what range of calories you should be meeting, but it may be a little bit more and it may be a little bit less. And there's nothing wrong with that because like I said, there's so many factors that go into your how your metabolism works and how you metabolize food. And so it's really important that if we feel like that calorie target leaves us feeling sluggish at the end of the day, leaves us feeling a little bit hungry, a little bit lightheaded, that we eat more. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. You should listen to your body. Your body is sending these signals for a reason. So it's very important that you honor it. As well as, sometimes we may find it to be a little bit too much. If you say, I could have done with less of that last meal that I had, then don't be afraid to cut it down a little bit and just see, where you fall in that calorie range. All right, let's go into carbs. A lot of people have a lot of questions and doubts about carbs. And so let's start. Carbs are part of a balanced diet because carbs provide us with so many important nutrients like B vitamins. So B vitamins like thiamine and niacin contribute to helping make the food that we eat into energy for our cells to work. Another B vitamin really important is folate that promotes the production of DNA. DNA is the instructions that our cells have to literally do our jobs and keep us alive. And it also helps with the production of methionine, which is an essential amino acid. Just a note here, whenever you see that a food has the word essential with it, it means that our body needs it, but it doesn't produce it. So we need to take it in with our diet. And so we usually take amino acids with our protein sources, which would be chicken breast, seafood, eggs, stuff like that. And so amino acids play really important roles in our bodies. Like, for example, they are the antibodies that help us fight viral and bacterial infections. They are also the building blocks for our muscle tissue, and they also help cells communicate with each other. So this is a way in which we see carbs supplying nutrients that we usually get from another macronutrient, which is protein. It's really cool to see how it comes full circle. We also have minerals in our carbs, which is iron that helps our bodies use oxygen, magnesium that along with calcium helps keeps our bones strong, selenium that has antioxidant properties to help protect our cells from harmful chemicals, and arguably one of the most important nutrients that is part of this food group is fiber. You really can't get much fiber from fats and proteins, and so fiber helps us keep full longer. So it helps with appetite regulation, What this means is that maybe you find that when you eat brown rice instead of white rice, instead of being hungry again in 2 hours, it takes a little bit longer for you to be hungry again. And that's great, because that means that our body is using our food up efficiently. And, it's making sure that we don't eat more than we should. And it's also making sure that we have energy for longer periods of time, which is really important. Fiber also feeds beneficial bacteria in our gut. So in our gut, which is our large intestine mostly, we have these different groups of bacteria that help us digest our food. And so a lot of the foods that we eat go to our bacteria, and these bacteria are there to make sure that the bad bacteria don't show up and make you sick. They also produce a lot of our body's serotonin. Serotonin is an important chemical messenger in our brain. It's an endorphin. You may have heard of endorphins. They make us happy, and they regulate our mood. So they're very important. The microbiome is very cool. So if you're interested, you should look into it. And fiber also helps promote bowel regularity. So whether that's, you poop 3 times a day or poop 1 time a day, it makes sure that, you are eliminating all that debris from your body, and that, you're keeping a healthy digestive system. Carbs are also the main source of energy for our brain. What this means is that when we ingest carbs, after we digest and absorb them, we break them down into glucose. Glucose is the building block for carbs. And so when we break them down into simple building blocks known as glucose, that becomes readily available for our body to use as energy. Whereas if we eat fats or proteins, they usually, after they get digested and absorbed, which is a whole process in itself, they have to go through a bunch of whole other different chemical processes to be converted into something that can be used for energy in the body. And it takes a longer period of time. It also takes more energy for fats and proteins to be converted into something that can be used for energy in the body, which is kind of ironic. So that is why our brain, which controls so much of our bodies and regulates so much of our bodies, basically, the control center of our bodies, prefers carbs. There's actually certain parts of the brain that actually only can have carbs. And so when people are on the keto diet, for example, that's not a problem, because your liver, what it does is that it produces glucose from proteins and fats. Your liver can do this. It's obviously very energy costly. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say obviously, but anyways, so it makes glucose from proteins and fats. And so, but it is still an energy costly process. It takes time. And so you can definitely, have energy without carbs. It's just how strategic and time efficient it is, especially when you're on the go student. And something that you also need to consider is that there's not much fiber in protein and fat sources. And so this is something that you almost exclusively get from carbs. And it's very important, especially for our digestive system, to keep it balanced, and for our gut bacteria. All right. So there is this big question regarding whether if we eat at a certain time in the day, do we gain weight? Or if we eat too many carbs, do we gain weight? So I just want to clear this off by saying, if you eat any food group in excess, even protein, it's just much harder to do with protein, because your body usually gets fuller faster. But if you overeat protein, you are going to gain weight. I mean, if you are in an excess of calories, and it doesn't matter where these calories come from, if they come from carbohydrates, if they come from fats, if they come from protein, you are still going to gain weight. So carbs are not the enemy, and they're not the only one that can make you gain weight. you can very much gain weight eating just fats and protein. Now, about eating at a certain time of day. If you eat a burger at noon versus eating a burger after 7 p.m. at 9 or 10 p.m., you still ate a burger that day. So the burger will represent the same amount of calories that it represented at noon versus at 10 p.m. It is the same thing. It doesn't change. It is literally chemistry. It is just, you're going to digest the same amount of calories. Now, if we want to get a little bit more specific, there is a certain time where your body may have energy needs that are lower than throughout the day. So for example, at nighttime, when you're getting ready to wind down and you're laying down mostly, you're not moving around, you're not going from class to class, you're not in rehearsals, you're not working out, you're getting ready to rest. And so if you ingest a lot of carbs or any nutrient for that matter, and but in the case of carbs, let's focus on carbs for a moment. If you ingest a lot of carbs, your body, since it doesn't need the carbs for energy at that moment, it will reserve it as glycogen in the body, and that's just a fancy word to that means our reserve of carbs in our body. It will reserve it as glycogen, because we just don't need carbs for activity right now, because we're doing minimal activity. And so glycogen is stored in the liver and the muscles. And when these glycogen stores are maxed, we can't store any more glycogen. Our body will store that glucose as fat. And that is when we potentially gain weight. That is why they say, don't eat so much at night, or don't eat carbs at night. Or whatever, because if our glycogen stores are maxed and we don't need it for energy, we're gonna store it as fat. Now, there is a caveat to this. If there comes nighttime and you just came from a workout, or you are feeling sluggish because you mix a meal during the day, or you just feel lightheaded and you think it's because you didn't eat well, you probably need to eat. And so what I would say is, try first eating things that are a little bit more balanced. So instead of eating like a banana, have a glass of milk, or have a glass of soy milk, or have nuts, and see if that kind of satisfies you. And so that can be a way in which we make sure that we don't raise our blood sugar when we are not really doing any activity. Now, the other scenario is in the morning. So for example, if you're like me, I wake up and I don't have breakfast right away, just because my schedule works better if I wake up, take a shower, get dressed, gather my stuff, and then have breakfast. Most of the time I take my breakfast on the go. So during that time, since I've just woken up, so I haven't eaten for 8 to 9 hours. So my body is going to use glycogen as its energy source in that moment. It's going to say, okay, so we're not intaking any carbs, we're not intaking any food, so I'm going to have to produce energy from somewhere. So it gets glycogen and it makes it into glucose to supply my brain and my muscles with the energy so I can run around, get dressed, and prepare my food and get out the door. Now, we should aim to be in a state in which our energy needs are moderate, and our carb consumption is moderate. And so our glycogen stores are there, and they're max, and they're fine, because our body is always going to have a backup in the case that we don't have an energy source available. That's just a survival mechanism that we have evolved throughout so many years. Our glycogen stores are there. That's fine. Our energy needs are moderate. We intake a moderate amount of carbohydrates, and so your body just uses them up for energy, and so they don't get stored as glycogen and they don't get stored as fat. You took in what you needed at the moment, and that was it. And obviously, it's much more complicated than this. You know, your body has so many processes going on at the same time. This is just the basics for you to understand that you could be a little bit more intentional with how you handle your carb intake. And so the best advice that any dietitian will let you know is that watch to distribute your carbs equally throughout your day. What this means is that try to not have a meal where you have all your carbs, because if you have a meal where you have, for example, white rice, oatmeal, a banana, for some reason, and then you have 2 meals where you don't, in that meal that you had all of those carb sources, a bunch of carbs, your body will use up only the carbs that it needs. The other will get stored as glycogen, and if glycogen is max, it will get stored as fat. And so you're not using your carbs as efficiently as you could, because later in the day you may very well need more carbs because you have more energy needs, but you didn't use them as efficiently because they got stored. And so you are probably going to have to eat again. And so it's just best to have them distributed equally throughout your day so that, like I explained, you're not in the situation where your energy needs are low and your carb consumption is high, or your energy needs are high and your carb consumption is low. You want to keep your energy levels moderate and your carb consumption moderate so they meet each other and you're in energy balance. And half of your grain intake, which are our carbs, should be whole grain, because these are the ones that contribute fiber to our diet. So whole grains are grains like brown rice, quinoa, oats. They have also been minimally processed, and so they have many more vitamins and minerals than refined grains. These are just options of snacks. Obviously, we're not promoting any specific brand. These are just examples for you to consider if they work for you, if they don't, and you can also use similar products. But this one is a great one, the Quaker Chewy oatmeal bars, because they have oatmeal, which is your whole grain, and then they also have peanut butter, which is fat. Fat is very important in our bodies. It helps us produce fat to maintain the health of our skin, and also maintain the membranes around our cells that prevent harmful chemicals to getting into our cells and things that shouldn't be there. Fats also help transport other nutrients throughout our body, so they play an immense role in our health. And so there is a function and a role for every food group, so we should aim to include them all in our diet. And so here is a great way in which you can have 2 nutrients in one. And this doesn't require any preparation. You can just take them with you, open them wherever you up, and eat them. And also saltine crackers like Ritz. And if you can make them have whole grains, the better. So these are ways in which you can meet your carb intake, but also meet your fiber intake. So being more intentional about your carb intake, so that you can get the most benefits from the food that you're eating. And these are all examples that are less than $1 per serving. And, they require little to no preparation. So it doesn't have to be complicated for you to hit these carb and fiber goals. So examples of balanced snacks are, so this means that you usually have more than one food group in a snack. So for example, here we have our rice cake, which is a carb. I also know that they have the whole wheat kind or the whole grain kind. Those would be better because you get fiber again. You also have the fruit jam, you have the bananas, which are your carbs, but then you also have fat, which is your peanut butter. The same here, you have your apples with peanut butter. This is one of my favorite ones, which is yogurt with granola, nuts, and fruits. So you have your fruits, you have your whole grains, which are the granola, you have your nuts, which is your fat source, and then you have your yogurt, which is a protein and a fat source. So you really have a complete snack right there. And all it takes is for you to mix some stuff up and put it in a bowl and take it with you. Another one that we have right here is carrots with hummus. So hummus is made with chickpeas, which is a plant-based protein source, and that's great. And carrots have vitamin A, which aid in our visual function. So these are just ways in which, these don't take much preparation. You can buy baby carrots, hummus, at the grocery store, and take it with you and have a good snack where you have more than one food group and you're making sure that you're intaking as much nutrients as possible in your snack. In regards to snacks to have before a vocal performance, I would suggest to not have anything that is too acidic. So for example, don't have spicy foods or lemonade or citrus foods, just because they can produce acid reflux. If you also have fried foods or fat heavy foods, they may take a little longer to digest. And so it may bloat you, it may give you gas. What I suggest kind of simple things, dry things like nuts and seeds, trail mix. Obviously make sure that if chocolate doesn't sit well with you, look for a trail mix that doesn't have chocolate. Another one is, apart from trail mix, nuts and seeds, saltine crackers. So saltine crackers are usually something that are prescribed to pregnant women because they have a lot of acid reflux, and they usually feel nauseous in the morning. And so saltine crackers or soda crackers are just a way in which, you're taking something into your body, so that you don't go on stage, with an empty stomach, but it also doesn't bloat you, it doesn't make you feel bad. An important note is that you should take the time to see what foods you digest well and which ones you don't. So for example, for me, I find that if I have certain types of cheeses or too much dairy, I usually get gas. So try to find foods that don't make you feel bad. So for example, if I have cheese and milk, it gives me gas, but if I have yogurt, it doesn't. It's weird. So find what works for you, and try to notice next time that you're eating something like, hey, this didn't give me gas, or it didn't bloat me, or it didn't give me pain. This is a good food that I can have around and, eat constantly because it doesn't make me feel bad. And so have an inventory of kind of like, snacks that don't make you feel bad, and reference that each time that you're grocery shopping, each time that you're meal planning, so that you make sure that you have something that works for you. And, to close off this presentation, I just want to say that the healthiest diet is a sustainable diet for you. Sorry about that. What this means is that you've taken the time to learn your body's energy needs, whether it's through the MyPlate calculator, whether it's, through your own intuitive eating. You can even keep a journal to see like, hey, this day I ate X and Y and I felt really good. I felt really energized. This day I ate X and Y, but I didn't. I felt like I needed a little bit more food or less food. And just, play around to see what is sustainable for you, what is something that you can do each day, whether that looks like 3 or 4 meals, whether that looks like 3 meals with 2 snacks, whatever works for you, is it's whatever makes you feel the healthiest is what's going to be healthiest for you. And also, like I was saying, honor your body. If you definitely feel like one day you hit your calorie target, but you still feel hungry, eat. Hunger is never an option, and it's never a reason. I mean, there's not a reason to go to bed hungry if you have food available, and if you feel good. I mean, just eat what you have to eat at that point, and then, like I said, try to keep a journal, see what works for you, what didn't. and then revamp. But just don't make yourself, suffer or go through unnecessary diets if they just don't make you feel good. I think that's the most that I can say on that. Another point is that, we don't want to be thinking of food as just calories all the time. Food is so much more than just fuel. It's culture and tradition. For example, I'm a Latina, and sometimes I have 3 sources of carbs in my plate. I have rice, I have beans, and I have plantains. But hey, I love sharing with my family. Sometimes it's, something that my grandmother cooked for me. I'm not going to say no. It's one of my favorite dishes. So I'm just going to have it and enjoy it. It doesn't mean that for every meal that I'm going to have, it's going to have 3 sources of carbs on my plate. It just means that, for that one time I had it and it was okay. Nothing's going to happen. Everything in moderation is great. Food also helps us share with other people when we go out with friends, when we go out with family. It's great memories that we make sharing food. And it's also an experience. I mean, think about the times that you see a dessert that you really, really want to try and it looks so chocolatey and delicious or whatever. Just be mindful of that too. Food is not numbers and biochemistry only. It's an important aspect of both culture and human happiness. So take that into account as well. And again, there are so many different factors that go into your metabolism and that are definitely sometimes out of your control directly at that moment, like your hormone levels, diseases that you may have, your stress levels. The best that you can do is go to a dietitian, go to your physician, and work out a treatment plan that works for you, but never blame yourself, never put yourself down. You are so much more than your diet and your physical activity. It's not that simple of an equation, no matter what anyone tries to tell you. You are so many different moving parts. So try to honor that as well. And last but not least, these are some Instagram dietitians to follow. I know that, in these times we see a lot of things on social media, and so it's good to fill our social media with things that are positive and healthy. Again, we're not endorsing or promoting anyone. These are just dietitians that I follow and that I think are cool and post cool advice. And so I encourage you to look for people that post positive content, post scientific and evidence-based content, and just makes you feel good about you and your life. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation. Reach out if you have any questions. Here's my email, and have a great day.